Hey there, it's Chris from Good Roads. A little while back, an awesome dude named Joshua reached out to me about an interesting project idea. He was a handboarder, and after seeing my fingerboard presses, he thought it might be fun for me to try my hand at DIY handboards. And what did this hero do? He sent me a whole dang setup to get measurements off of and to go experiment with. So thanks, Joshua. You're a real one. Now, according to him, there aren't many people out there making quality handmade wooden handboards. Or handboard hardware components at all, really, but that's a topic for a different video. And there's next to no one making handboard building tools. And that is exactly the kind of problem that I like to address, enabling y'all to make gear that would otherwise be difficult or too niche to get. So, let's make some handboards. Now, these decks are kind of right between fingerboards and full-size skateboards, and I'm not sure which sets of processes and materials are going to be the right choice. So we're going to do some experimentation here. And to do that, we're going to need a few things. Thing one is a press. This is a very simple spar-style press I put together using some wood beams, lag bolts, and some unnecessary but nice to have printed parts. If y'all are interested, I can make a video on how to build one of these bad boys, just let me know. The next thing we're going to need is board materials, meaning glue and veneers. I just bought a pack of 12 by 12 maple veneer off of eBay, and we're going to see how that works out. And the last thing we're going to need is a mold, and if you wanted to try to do this yourself, you could probably make one out of insulation foam the way that I've done with full-size molds many times. You just got to be very careful about your gaps, but I like 3D printing molds, so I am 3D printing my molds. And I tried out quite a few different designs, because I had a lot of questions. Can you use an open grid like you can for full-size decks? Does it need a smooth surface? How does alignment work? Let's answer all of those questions. The first step is going to be to cut my veneers down to the right dimension. I'm working right off the molds and making a stack of long and cross-grain veneer sheets. I'm gonna double check the thickness of the reference deck and figure out exactly how many of these particular veneers I'm gonna need to make the right size stack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pretty bang on. Cool. And hey, it looks like we're going to be using 5 veneers, so that gives us a layup of 3 long grain and 2 cross grain, very similar to a fingerboard deck. For this first test layup, I'm going to try using a PVA based wood glue like the one we'd use for full-size decks. And I hope this works, because I like PVA glues better, but we'll see. Just kidding, I want to use the black molds, I forgot. These are the molds I'm going to use. First. I got all my veneers glued up. Dude, this one on the bottom, look at that. Look at that curl. What a joke. What am I supposed to do about that? Squeeze that, get that. You're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine, little veneer. I believe in you. I believe in you. Boom. Boom, and that's not gonna fit because I cut them to fit in the other mold. Ah! That should be fine. Got them centered in the mold. Moved them over to the press, and clamped it down. And we've got squeeze out, which is usually a pretty good sign. So let's give it 24 hours to cure and crack it back open to see how it came out. Looks It still feels wet. Dang it, man, that glue. It is still wet. And in addition to being wet, if you look carefully, you can see that there are bubbles or voids in the deck. This is an unfortunate issue that can happen when using these really thin layers of veneer and PVA glues. The water in the glue causes the wood to swell and wrinkle, which can result in failed layups. The good news is that, just like with fingerboards, we can try using a urethane-based glue like Gorilla Glue and completely avoid this set of problems. So here we go again. I'm using a spare piece of veneer, wrapped in packing tape, as a squeegee and spreading glue across all of my layers. And I should be wearing gloves. I saw that comment about glue safety on my last fingerboard building video, but I recorded this project before that video went live. So yeah, nitrile gloves. I'm going to be wearing them in the future, and so should you. Oh, that's not how that works. That's how that works, right there. And to protect my mold and press, I'm just wrapping my layup in wax paper. These urethane glues foam and expand as they cure, and they can make a huge mess. The layup and molds go into the press. We crank it down as tight as possible. And wait for the cure. Well, that's closer to what we're looking for. Let me drill it out and take a better look. It feels good. The stiffness feels right. It's right in line with that example deck that I've got. But if you look closely, you can see this kind of grid imprint. I'm going to quickly rough shape this deck and see what our glue seams look like. Now, these actually look good, but I don't like this pattern on the surface. And that's the downside of the urethane glues. The same expansion and foaming that can make a mess of your mold can also push the veneers apart, and in this case, it caused a sort of pillowing texture. It picked that pattern up from the texture of the surface of the mold, so that answers one of my big questions. Open grid molds are definitely off the table. And we're also going to need new molds with even better surfaces than this one I've been testing so far. So I did another redesign and reprint. And this time around I used a belt printer I'm testing out. I'll be talking about that machine more in a future video, so subscribe to catch that. But for now, since the layer lines on a belt printer are oriented in a different direction, it gives a super smooth surface to the mold. And with that, once more into the breach. Glue, stack, squeeze, and after the cure we can take a look. Oh, I forgot to drill. That's okay. Alright, it looks like we finally got a success on our hands. For the time being, I'm just using that reference deck as a shaping template. I think a full-size shaper block like the ones you'd use with fingerboards would be a waste of material, but some kind of reference template would be fun to design. Leave me a comment below if you've got a good idea on how that could work. Since these decks are basically the same shape and material as fingerboards, we can use the same shaping techniques. I'm rough cutting my deck with sheet metal snips, sanding down to the line with my little disc sander, and then applying a liberal amount of elbow grease to round the rails and clean everything up. There has got to be a better way to do this. But after all the sanding, we've got a really nice looking deck. And the geometry is a dead ringer for the deck I took my measurements from. So there we go, a 5-ply handcrafted maple handboard deck. And a huge thank you to Joshua for sending me the board to take measurements off of. I was able to do a much better job on these molds because of his help. I'm going to add some graphics and finish to this deck and then send it out to him along with a set of these molds. And speaking of molds, if you want to press some handboard yourself, I've got the final versions of these bad boys over in the shop at goodrosecollective.com. I added some mounting points to the outside of the molds and made some improvements to make them easier to print. If you've got a printer with a larger print bed, you can get the files and print your own, or you can get them straight from me with the added benefit of that smooth belt printed surface. And that's going to be it for this one. If you want more awesome DIY board sport goodness, just go ahead and subscribe. If you want to support the channel, you can grab something from the shop or go over and check out the Patreon and join these awesome folks right here. As always, I love having you along for the ride, and until next time, I'll see you soon. Got some guests in the shop this week. And they are so cute.